Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. We're here with the Series 66 exam. First, I'd like to go over the outline for the content. This content is found on the NASAA.org website. They are the sponsors of your exam, if you did not know that. First thing we want to look at is that the content is separated into 4 content areas. The first being economics and business information. Now, the good news to that is there are only a total of 5 questions. It's really a lot of fundamental and quantitative analysis is really what it is. Balance sheets, income statements, time value of money, alphas, betas, Sharpe ratios, that quantitative analysis is usually what that stuff is. Not most people's favorite category, but again, good news, only 5 questions. The next area would be investment vehicles. Now, good news to that is, for many of you who have just recently passed your Series 7, that shouldn't be too bad, right? Well, be careful, because you're going to see some investment vehicle products on the 66. That was not covered on the Series 7. Life insurance being one, futures and forwards being the other, okay? So you got to be careful with that a little bit. The next category, client recommendations and investment strategies. This is a lot of the investment models, theories. Boy, it's really a catch-all category. It's got a lot of different stuff in it. And it's a rather large area, 30 questions, okay? And now everyone's favorite category, of course, are the laws and regs. And we've got a whopping 45 questions. Slightly less than half of the test are on the laws and regs, right? So that's a total of 100 questions. Don't be surprised if they throw an additional 5 experimental questions at you. You won't know which ones they are. They are randomly dispersed throughout the test, okay? And on the Series 66, unlike any other exam, you must answer 73 of the 100 graded questions correctly. Okay? That's a 73%. Now, a couple of words about this, right? The laws and regs probably are the most intimidating parts of this exam for most people. Okay? If you look in your textbook, you know, half the textbook, that's half the 600 pages, something like that, is going to be on the laws and regs. So oftentimes, many people fear that this is going to be their most difficult part. The interesting part about this, however, is when I talk to people after they have taken the test, it's generally the highest score they get is the laws and regs. You wouldn't think that before taking the exam. Generally, the lowest areas are these two, the investment vehicles and the business information sections. Interesting, huh? Probably wouldn't think that going into the exam. So, just a word for the wise. Yes, you got to know your laws and regs, no doubt about it, okay? But typically, the textbooks and a lot of the practice questions go way deeper than the real test actually goes on some of this stuff. So that's why people generally score pretty high. You know, you've spent a lot of time on it. You've been pounding your head up against the wall on some of those concepts that they put up on the test and in the practice questions. And you find that they're not nearly that difficult on the real test. Good news, huh? Laws and regs typically, I'm not going to say this for everybody, but typically the vast majority of people score highest on the laws and regs. Isn't that interesting? Okay? Now, that brings up another interesting question then. How do I best go about studying and getting this god-awful thing out of my life? right? For most of you, this is probably your last one. If you're new in the industry, you've been through the SIE, the Series 7 top-off, and now finally the 66, okay? And then once you get this ugly thing out of the way, then you can start making some money, okay? So, how do we best go about this process? Well, I always like to tell the story about how I first got into business, right? The boss says, welcome to the team. Here, read this. Take a test, right? So they hands me this 600, 700 page, tome, this huge textbook, and says, good luck. And that's all I had. No online questions, no online video courses, no live video courses, nothing. Just the textbook, okay? Now, I get this question a lot. Brian, should I go through all 600 pages of that textbook? Yes. I would much rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. Now, 600 pages of this technical stuff can be a bit daunting. I kid you not. But I got through it. 600 to 700 pages. Now, let me ask you something. How much of that are you going to be able to retain, right? After reading 600 pages of technical information? Probably not a whole lot, maybe 20% of it. So for me, since that's all I had, I read through it a second time. And then a third time. And the third time I went through it, I actually wrote notes on each section. And I swear to this day, writing the notes out is what got me past these exams. For me, if I write it, I tend to remember it better. A lot of people are like this, okay? I'm not any different. I'm probably more like average. Some people do note cards rather than writing notes. It's kind of the same thing. Again, the purpose being that when you write it, you tend to remember it better, okay? However, so, I didn't read it once, I didn't read it twice, I read it 3 times and then took notes. And that's what got me past. Now, that was way back when, in a galaxy far, far away, right? Now, in today's world, you've got so many tools that help you, like a video course, right? However, when you get to that textbook, instead of just piling through 600 pages, right? You're reading it at work, you're reading it after the kids go to bed, you're reading it at 6 o'clock in the morning before you go to work. Whenever you can try to squeeze that stuff in. It's difficult, I know, I understand that. But instead of trying to pile through 600 pages of this stuff, let's take it unit by unit, okay? Now, again, the different textbook manufacturers, Kaplan, STC, Training Consultants, Past Perfect, Series 66 for dummies, there actually is one, believe it or not. No matter which textbook you use, okay? TestGeek, Exam Prep, does not have a textbook. I don't want to duplicate or compete against those big publishers. They've got bazillions of dollars when they can publish all those textbooks. I don't, and I'm not going to, okay? I've had enough experience with textbooks before. I don't want to start now. Anyway, so you get through those textbooks. You want to go through chapter or unit by unit, okay? Kaplan and STC have been the oldest, are the oldest, and been around the longest, and probably the most reliable, in my opinion, okay? You ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different answers, let me tell you, okay? But the Kaplan and the STC, and I'll probably mention this throughout the video course, okay? They are the oldest, most reliable out there. So, instead of piling through the entire textbook, take it chapter by chapter or unit by unit, however it's broken out, okay? You can use your own discretion, right? So, read the first chapter or unit. Then, they often have those online practice questions. Now for me, I think Kaplan's online question bank platform is probably the best. But again, there's a lot of different opinions out there. You go on social media, you'll hear 1,000 different opinions, right? And you're not going to be any better off before you started reading that stuff because there's so many opinions. Anyway, here's what I like. Just get through the first chapter or unit, whatever you want to do, and then go online and do 20 questions from that chapter. That's all. No more. okay? I know some of you want to do 137 of these questions, right? But that's not really necessary, and you'll get an opportunity to see more of them later, okay? You don't want to sit and start piling all this stuff down your throat, right? Again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this information more efficient, okay? That's the problem. What we're trying to do is to pass the exam, right? Get a P. Really? There's only 2 scores you get on this test, a P and not a P, okay? And that's what we want for pass, right? Okay, so 20 questions on chapter 1. Then you can read through chapter 2, okay? Boy, this is rocket science, huh? 20 questions on chapter 2. Then, how about 20 questions if you have the ability to customize your quizzes? And that, to me, is valuable. I know Kaplan does, I believe STC does. Training consultants and Past Perfect, I'm not quite sure if they allow you to customize those quizzes. So we want to customize a 20-question quiz on chapters 1 and 2 combined. You see, we're going to add and reinforce. Add and reinforce. Add and reinforce. For example, right? Our next would be chapter 3, 20 questions on chapter 3. Then how about 30 questions on chapters 1 through 3 cumulatively? Okay? And you just repeat this process. That way, as you gain more knowledge, you also reinforce the old stuff as well, so you don't forget it. So you're just adding and reinforcing, adding and reinforcing. So you start small with chapter 1, and then you simply just add as you go. I refer to it as the inverted pyramid. Okay? I think this is the best way in which you can obtain, retain, and reinforce this information. You know, all 600 pages of it or whatever it is. Okay? That's the best way to do this. Now, once you get through this, okay, what you will eventually find on the test, that 40% of this stuff isn't even on the test. Okay? It's like that for every exam. Remember the Series 7? Same way. A lot of the stuff you read in that textbook wasn't on the test. SIE, same thing. A lot of these textbook publishers literally take this content outline and write, you know, massive pages on every bit of it. But of course, not every bit of it is tested. Okay? So, once you get this, this of course is going to create the foundation, the base for your knowledge. Now we work on that. Okay? I'm going to tell you, I don't know how many of you are going to like this, but my role is not to educate, but to get people past an exam. Okay? What you need to know in the real industry, your firm, your boss, they'll teach you how to be successful in the business. That's not what this is meant to do. Okay? You're not going to have customers come up and ask you about naked put writing, okay? Or some of this other bizarre stuff, excuse me. Or internal rate of return and the time value of money formula, or the Sharpe ratio formula, and those sorts of things. They're not going to ask you that stuff. Anyway, so now we got to work on passing the exam, okay? So that's the second step in this process. And that is take a class, okay? Now, I have been doing classes for this for a long time, 25 years, okay? Live classes, predominantly, until, you know, the advent of online and what we're doing now. Now, see, for me, this has always been about one thing. When I used to work for the firm, way back when, I started teaching our new guys, Series 7, 6 months after I passed the exam, right? And all the boss cared about was onboarding these guys, right? Getting them past their exams so they can start there and start making phone calls, right? Or however, or whatever you do for business. So all he cared about was that P. So now, what we want to find out is what is on the test, how it most likely shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. Okay? So the first thing you have to realize, test world versus the real world. Okay? Because again, you're not going to use 80% of this mess anyway. So what we care about, again, what's on the test, how it most likely shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. Okay? Now this is crucial because I've seen many, many people in my 25 years who are more than intelligent enough to obtain this information, yet struggle passing a standardized exam. Okay? There's good test takers and there's not so good test takers, right? We know this. We've been through these tests all our life, predominantly, right? A lot of these standardized multiple choice exams. So you have to also understand that knowing how to take the test is almost as important as knowing what's on the test. I tell people that the difference between a 68% and a 78% passing and not passing is knowing how to take these standardized exams. Okay? Now, here's your first step. Ready? The first secret step to passing your Series 66. Keep it simple. The more you think, the more you sink. Paralysis by analysis. Okay? Because you have to understand the structure of these multiple choice exams. They all have pretty much the same structure. The 66, the Series 7, the SIE, they all have the same structure. Now, speaking of which, if you've just been through the SIE and the Series 7 top-off, right, those two exams are written by FINRA, and that's pretty much the broker-dealer side of it. The Series 66 is the investment advisor side of it, and they're regulated, if not by the SEC, then by the NASAA, North American Securities Administrators Association, NASA. Not that NASA, this NASA. Okay? Basically what they are securities lawyers, securities attorneys. Attorneys that specialize in securities law. So, the syntax is a little different than the 7 and the SIE. Okay? Ready for this? I'm not trying to scare you, I just want you to know what that thing's going to look like come test day. Okay? Better to know now than show up and be surprised at the test center. The Series 66 actually has a lower pass rate than the Series 7 does. Okay? The content's a little different, but that's really not the biggest thing. It's the way in which the test is structured. Okay? Now, I said, all standardized exams are structured the same way, right? The 7, the SIE, 66. That is, they are structured in a linear format, which means A plus B equals C. 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. All of them are structured this way. Do you know there's actually a college degree for test writing? It's called psychometrics. So you see, all these test writers take these same courses, and that's why the structure is similar. Anyway, now, as you may recall from the SIE and the 7, these two crucial variables are often interspersed with a lot of, here's a technical term for you, they're interspersed with a lot of gobbledygook, right? A lot of distracting material, superfluous distracting material, trying to distract you away from the two key variables, okay? That's why it's crucial that you keep it simple, or you're just going to get hung up on some of this other stuff, okay? Now, I think we all know what 2 plus 2 is, right? So one answer choice will say 4, except when there is a full moon twice within a 30-day period. And you go, sounds logical. Sounds possible. Of course, you know, I know that number's right. That sounds logical. Right? So you're going to be very, very tempted to pick it. The next answer choice, just for fun, says 32. The next answer choice says 68. And the fourth answer choice says the square root of 16. Uh-oh. Now where do we go? Right? I have two answers that appear to be the same. That often is what the difficulty of the 66 is. You have many test questions. Even though you can get through a lot of the superfluous crap that's in these test questions, this is really where it gets a little challenging. But which one is most correct? Okay? Well, again, see, what you're trying to do is, right, you don't want to miss anything. And you're so tempted, boy, that sure does sound logical. 2 full moons within a 30-day period. That sounds okay. Say, do you know that? No, 2 plus 2 is 4. It always has been. It always will be. It's nothing other than 4. So it's trying to attract your logical mind. Okay? In other words, you're letting the test take you. So, keep it simple. Stay with what you know. Yeah, except when there's 2 full moons. When did you learn that? No, stay with what you know. 2 plus 2 is 4. Always has been. Always will be. Okay. You take the test. Don't let the test take you. Don't let them attract your very logical, right? Very logical mind. Stay with what you know. Keep it simple. You take the test. Don't let the test take you. Now these are all cliches, but I'm telling you, it's this stuff that's going to be the difference between a 68 and a 78. 25 years of doing this. Why are there so many smart people not passing this exam? There it is. That's why. Okay? So, now, I don't know if I should tell you this, but I'm going to anyway. Live classes nowadays, in 25 years of doing this, I found a lot of them kind of going downhill in quality. Not the instructors necessarily, but the methodology. I don't know who it was or why it was that decided that reading PowerPoint slides was an effective way of learning how to pass these exams. I don't know. Is it me because I'm old school, I guess? I don't think so. I like to chalk it out and talk it out. Okay? And I think a lot of people do. And this has nothing to do with generational stuff. I think everybody's that way. Most of us are visual learners. The majority of us. The majority of us are linear thinkers. But not all of us. Okay? Great majority, yes. Okay? If you don't happen to be a linear thinker, I guess to simplify that, it's right brain versus left brain, that kind of thing. Right? Even right brain non-linear thinkers actually can get past this as well. It's just that you struggle a little bit more, you have to force yourself a little bit more to do these things. Okay? That's really the only difference for right brain versus left brain. It's a little bit more difficult. Because you tend to be a little bit more meticulous, a little bit more creative, right? That kind of thing. So be careful with that. So that's the second process, or what I like to call the second pillar. Get through the material, take a class, because again, we're going to take all this voluminous information and make it more efficient to concentrate solely with what's on the test, how it shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. Okay? That's the second pillar. In 25 years, man, I spent a lot of time describing to people this. Of course, everybody who wants to pass these exams like tomorrow, without doing any of this, right? Can I just take your class? Not really, because it's based upon all of this content, so that we can then make it more efficient. Okay? I wish I could tell you that my classes, my video courses are the end-all to end-all, but they're really not. Okay? The third pillar is simulating the real exam the best the law allows. Okay? Now, on the SIE, Series 7 top-off, how close were your practice questions to the real question? Probably not too bad. Yeah, they're a little, but the NASA exams, there can be a bigger gap between that. So you got to be careful with that, okay? In other words, the questions or the answer choices aren't going to be worded exactly the same way as your test material, okay? They're asking the same stuff. To be honest with you, I haven't seen any concept on the 66 I haven't heard 72 times before, okay? The content isn't new, it's just some of the vocabulary that they use may be a little different, okay? So, what you want to do is simulate the test-taking environment the best the law allows, because they're not going to be, verbatim from what you see on the real test. Okay? Then, if you ask me, because I've been around it for so long, they're pretty close. But anyway, because with some of the textbook publishers, they will allow you to do these practice exams. They will score it for you, and if they can then break down that score into those different 4 components, and then actually break it down into subcategories within those 4 components, right? The economics, business information, investment vehicles, client, laws and rights. If they can do that, man, that's invaluable information. Because now you can spot, you can identify almost instantly where your weak spots are. Okay? You got a 74% on this topic, and 83%, in this one particular topic you got a 58. Well, that's an issue. That's a problem. Okay? And again, they typically can be within 5 to 7 percentage points of the real score. That is plus or minus 5 to 7%. Again, there's a little bit more standard deviation with the 66 than there is with the 7 or the SIE. Okay? Anyway, these practice exams allow you to, give you a mock exam, kind of simulate the test-taking environment, squirrel yourself away, put your mask on, or whatever you need to do, in these days, that's going to simulate the real test environment. Okay? Because the less that surprises you come test day, the better. Okay? So that is invaluable information. And then you can repeat this process, at least 3 times, if not 5 times, always trying to identify those weak areas. And then you can take that information, go back into whatever chapter that is covered in, and or the class, wherever that's covered in, and get ramped up on it. Okay? And then repeat the process. So, all right, mock exams, analyze and review. Analyze and review. Mock exam, analyze and review. And with that, you should see your scores increasing, if they're not already, in the mid-70s, 80 or higher. Okay? So for me, this is the 3-pillar process. Again, I've told people, my video courses are not a standalone solution. Okay? I've got class notes and a practice final and some additional practice questions in most of my video courses and all my video courses. But it's not a standalone solution. It is a bridge between the textbook publishers and the real exam. Okay? And you need this foundation to build that bridge. Okay? Just to be honest with you, I'd love to tell you that it's the end-all for end-alls, but it's not. It is a supplement. It is a bridge to help you bridge that gap. If you've been through the textbooks, there's a gap between the textbook practice questions and the real test. Okay? And that's what our courses are meant to do, is to close that gap, giving you a better chance, increasing your chances for passing. Okay? So I hope that helps. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get right into that Series 66 content. I'll see you real soon.